Welcome to Corner Coffee with Cricket. Cricket here, thanks for joining me in the final part of my new book. When Life Changed, I Fought Back. In this chapter, I wanted to end on a positive note. The subject matter has been very heavy with a lot of information. It has been a tough time dealing with things post-medical journey and losing Phil. I also wanted to tell some special people how much I appreciated them. Grab a fresh cup of coffee.
Imagine beating cancer. Like, you have just fought the absolute hardest, most grueling battle of your entire life.
Oh, without a doubt. Just a horrific ordeal.
Right. You've endured the treatments, the terror, the uncertainty, and then finally you get the all clear. You take your first real deep breath in months.
You think it's over.
Exactly. But then in the exact same heartbeat, you find out your partner is dying.
God.
Yeah. Your personal war didn't end, The battlefield just abruptly changed.
And it is a level of psychological whiplash that the human brain is simply not built to process seamlessly.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I mean, surviving the initial trauma depletes all your reserves, and then, you are immediately tasked with fighting an entirely new, unwinnable war on behalf of someone else.
And that terrifying immediate pivot is the foundation of our deep dive today. We are exploring what it actually takes to rebuild a life from the foundation up after enduring back-to-back catastrophic traumas.
Which is such an important topic for anyone navigating profound loss.
It really is. And we're pulling our insights today from part 6 of author Cricket Fox's newly published book. It's called When Life Changed, I Fought Back. And it just hit Amazon on April 28th.
It's a remarkably powerful read.
Yeah, and Cricket has been incredibly raw throughout this entire book, right? Talking about her medical journey and then the subsequent just devastating loss of her partner, Phil.
The context of this specific section is really vital, too, because Cricket explicitly states her goal for this final part of the book.
Right, she has a specific mission here.
Yeah, after guiding the reader through the visceral, bloody realities of her medical battles and, her profound grief, she intentionally wants to finish the story on a high note.
Which is so refreshing.
It is. She wants to communicate without any ambiguity that she is doing okay, but she doesn't present okay as a magical finish line.
Right.
She presents it as an ongoing architectural project.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I really like that framing. I think it's almost like an architectural crisis, you know?
Like, if your life is a house, cancer knocks out a few of the walls. You manage to brace the ceiling, you patch the drywall, and you think the structure is finally secure.
You're exhausted, but you're safe.
Right. But then, losing Phil is like someone driving a bulldozer straight through the primary load-bearing pillar.
The entire roof comes down.
Yes. You don't just get to walk out the front door into the sunshine. You are standing in the rubble, and you are the only one left to pour a new foundation.
And let's look at the timeline of that collapse, because the sheer density of it is staggering.
It's unbelievable.
Right. I mean, Cricket was fighting cancer, and she notes that she had to become her own fierce advocate because she literally had no one else to do it for her.
Yeah.
She had to navigate the medical bureaucracy, the treatment plans, the terror, and doing all of this while simultaneously acting as a caregiver for Phil because his health was declining at the same time.
The cognitive load there is just unimaginable to me. Like, you're tracking your own medications, your own scans, while also managing his.
And then comes the breaking point she describes. Just as she gets the miraculous news that she has beaten cancer, Phil's own battle escalates.
Yeah, she writes that deep down, she knew this was a fight he wouldn't win.
Which is just heartbreaking. In her words, she says in the space of a heartbeat, she went from patient to caregiver to widow.
What's fascinating here is the mechanisms of what happens to a person when they experience that specific trajectory. In psychology, we can think of this as severe identity vertigo.
Identity vertigo.
Yeah, because when you are a cancer patient, your daily script is completely written for you. Your entire identity shrinks down to this microscopic focus on survival.
Right. Your biological imperative is simply to endure the next hour or the next day.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Your world becomes waiting rooms and blood counts.
Yeah, nothing else matters.
And then instantly the script flips. She has to pivot to caregiver. So now the focus is entirely externalized.
Oh, I see.
Your own nervous system is constantly on high alert, scanning for signs of distress in your partner. The cortisol doesn't stop pumping, it just changes direction.
Wow, yeah.
And then, abruptly, the role shifts to widow. The person you were caring for is gone. So the adrenaline has absolutely nowhere to go. The daily script vanishes completely.
It's no wonder she talks about the absolute logistical nightmare of grief.
Oh, the logistics are awful.
Right. People often picture grief as just crying in a dark room. They don't talk about the mundane absurdity of it.
So true.
Like, it's trying to plan a life celebration while simultaneously trying to remember to take your own daily vitamins. Because the routine you had with the person who always reminded you to take them is just gone.
Yeah, the simplest mechanics of living have to be relearned from scratch. It forces this massive environmental and social recalibration.
Definitely.
And she explicitly mentions her stepson, Mick, in this context.
Right, and this is a detail I really want to dig into, because she writes about facing the daunting reality of learning to live alone. But Mick is physically present in the house.
Right, he's there.
He's acting as her carer. They are sharing the house. They are navigating this space together. So how can she say she's learning to live alone when Mick is literally right there?
It's a fair question.
I mean, is it possible that the profound loneliness of grief isn't about physical isolation, but about the sudden absence of a shared unspoken language with a partner?
That is exactly it. It seems like a contradiction until we separate the concepts of geography and emotional resonance.
Okay, maybe that makes sense.
Well, Mick is providing physical care, companionship, and profound love. He occupies the physical geography of the house, but loneliness, the profound, aching loneliness of grief, it is not about a lack of bodies in a room.
Right.
It's about the sudden extinction of a shared, unspoken language.
A language, like
Yes.
literally.
Yes. Think about it. When you build a life with a romantic partner over years, you develop a highly specific microculture. You develop an entire dialect of shorthand.
Oh, like inside jokes.
Exactly. It's an inside joke from a decade ago that only takes a raised eyebrow across a crowded room to communicate. It's the specific way you arrange the pillows, or the silent agreement of who makes the coffee on a Sunday.
Yeah, those little invisible routines.
Right. When Phil died, that entire civilization collapsed. Mick does not speak the exact dialect of the life Cricket built with Phil. No one else on Earth does.
Oh, man, that is brutal. She is essentially the last surviving speaker of a dead language.
She is. So while she has immense support and love for Mick, she is emotionally alone in navigating the remnants of that microculture.
That makes so much sense.
The physical environment is littered with the artifacts of a language she can no longer speak with anyone.
That reframes everything about how she interacts with the world outside her house, too. Because she doesn't just stay inside and avoid the places where she and Phil used to speak that language.
No, she confronts them.
She actively, almost aggressively confronts them. Let's look at the Adelaide Crows footy games.
Yes, this is a great example.
Last year, she held herself back. She avoided the games. But eventually, she decides she has to go back to actively close the chapter on sharing those games with Phil.
A huge step.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because instead of just buying a random ticket in a different section, she brings a mate and she purposefully sits in the exact seat they bought for Phil.
Yeah.
A seat they picked out together, but that he never got to use. Now, I have to stop here. Because to me, this sounds like emotional self-sabotage.
It does sound counterintuitive.
Right. Why step directly into the ghost's shoes? Wouldn't that make their absence deafening? Why is stepping into that specific seat so crucial for healing? Doesn't that just invite a total public meltdown?
Well, it completely defies our basic instincts, which tell us to run away from pain. But what Cricket is doing here is a textbook, self-guided form of exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy.
Yes. Let's look at the neuroscience of avoidance for a second. If she never goes to the stadium, her brain's fear center, the amygdala, codes that entire location as a threat.
Oh, wow.
The Adelaide Crows games become a radioactive zone governed by grief. Her nervous system literally learns that the stadium equals unbearable emotional danger.
So by avoiding it, she's actually making the stadium more terrifying over time.
Exactly. Avoidance gives the grief power. By walking into the stadium and sitting in his specific seat, she is forcing her brain into a process called extinction learning.
Extinction learning, okay.
She is flooding her nervous system with the emotional trigger. But over the course of the game, her brain realizes that the physical danger is gone. She is reclaiming the territory.
She's proving it to herself.
Yes, proving to her own biology that she can survive the deafening absence of him sitting next to her. She calls it making new memoirs.
Overwriting the data.
Yes, exactly.
And that data overwrite is immediately put to the test at the Crows launch event. She has this moment where she runs into someone named Tex. And they're talking, and Tex completely innocently asks where Phil is.
Oh, a conversational landmine.
A total gut punch. You brace yourself for the stadium seat, but you can't brace yourself for the casual question from a mate who just doesn't know.
No, it hits you out of nowhere.
But the source notes that she stood there as herself, honoring Phil's memory. She didn't crumble. She didn't run to the bathroom to hide.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because she had already done the neurological heavy lifting. By doing the exposure work in the stadium seats, she fortified those emotional load-bearing walls we talked about earlier.
Right.
When Tex asked that question, the sudden shock was painful, undoubtedly, but it didn't collapse the structure.
That is so powerful.
It really demonstrates the critical difference between moving on, which implies, abandoning the past, and carrying forward, which means integrating the painful past into your present reality so it no longer paralyzes you.
Which bridges us perfectly into how she uses art to carry that weight forward. We talked about sports, but she also leans heavily into pop culture, specifically movies.
Yes, the Wicked connection.
There is a profoundly beautiful symmetry here involving the musical Wicked. And specifically, the new movie, Wicked, for Good.
The history she has there is incredibly dense.
It really is. She and Phil watched the original Wicked movie together 5 times. And they had absolutely no idea that the 5th viewing would be their last.
Such a heavy detail.
Yeah. The story, the themes, the music, it all became such a structural pillar for them that when it came time to write Phil's eulogy, Cricket used the show's most famous lyric. Because I knew you, Phil, I've been changed for good.
This highlights the sociological function of art. When we are drowning in an unimaginable grief, our everyday vocabulary is just wildly insufficient.
It's like words fail completely.
Exactly. We can't articulate the depth of the void. So we borrow the words of artists, a song, a play, a movie. It acts as a temporary container.
A container, I love that.
It can hold the vast, heavy emotions that we just don't have the architecture to support on our own.
And what's amazing is how that container brings new people into her orbit. At Phil's life celebration, the person who actually stood up and read those Wicked lyrics was a mate named Matt.
Yes.
Cricket and Matt had connected earlier over how the music from that specific show helped them both navigate the brutal parts of life. Fast forward, and Cricket and Matt decide to go see the new Wicked movie together.
Their first mate date.
Right, just catching up over Cokes and popcorn.
It highlights the surreal duality of grief, doesn't it? You are engaging in the most mundane, typical social behavior eating popcorn at a multiplex while carrying an invisible mountain of sorrow and history.
And the universe has a way of highlighting that history. It isn't until a year later, during their second movie date together, that they realize the timing.
This part gave me chills.
Me too.
You?
They're sitting in the theater exactly 3 days after the anniversary of Phil's passing, and as the song For Good plays through the massive theater speakers, the emotional dam just breaks. The tears come.
A completely visceral reaction.
And Cricket walks out of the cinema with this profound realization. She realizes that while some people change us for good and then leave, others, like Matt, stay to make sure we never have to walk the yellow brick road alone.
It's a masterful integration of her past and her present. The art acts as the connective tissue, It honors Phil, the person who permanently altered her trajectory, but it also solidifies her bond with Matt, the person keeping her company right now. It destroys the myth that grief only severs connections.
Right.
When you actually lean into it, it can forge incredibly resilient new ones.
People always use that cliche of the tree growing around an obstacle to describe post-traumatic growth. Like the tree, it's a rock, it grows a big ugly knot around it, but keeps growing.
Yes, a very common analogy.
But reading Cricket's story, it doesn't feel like a tree and a rock. It feels more like kintsugi.
Oh, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery.
Yes. Like the bowl is shattered. You can never put it back together exactly as it was. But you piece it together, and instead of hiding the cracks with clear glue, you fill them with this luminous gold lacquer.
That is beautiful.
The gold represents the new memories, the new people like Matt, the new experiences. The bowl is arguably stronger and visibly more complex because it wears its history openly instead of trying to pretend it was never broken.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize what Cricket is doing. She isn't hiding the fractures, she is filling them with deliberate golden actions.
Yeah.
And we really see the culmination of that repair work in the final section, where she gives a tangible update on her life now.
She is actively reclaiming her spark. We get a massive health update from her. As of her writing, she is nearly a year and a half cancer-free, heading into her July checkups.
Huge milestone.
Massive. She's transitioning to monitoring every 4 to 5 months, doing the standard CT scans with contrast and blood work.
The psychological shift from active warfare to periodic surveillance is huge. When you are fighting the cancer, every ounce of your energy is dedicated to destroying something.
Right, survival mode.
Exactly. When you move to monitoring, your brain finally has the caloric and emotional bandwidth to start creating something.
And she is creating on all cylinders. She's pouring energy into social media, writing blogs, sharing her knit and crochet projects on Instagram.
Really leaning into community.
Yeah, and she revived her original podcast, Corner Coffee with Cricket, and even launched a brand new sports podcast earlier this year. She notes that while audience numbers can fluctuate, the humbling reality is that when you share your true self, people genuinely listen.
She is taking the extreme vulnerability she was forced into by her illness, and she is deliberately wielding it to foster connection. She is choosing to be visible.
And she is demanding that her readers do the same. She ends this section with a final word, a toolkit of direct, actionable advice forged in the fire of her experiences.
Highly practical stuff.
Very. She tells you to find your spark, especially when the world casually writes you off as high risk or finished. She insists that people become their own medical advocates.
If she had to be.
Right. Demand second opinions, don't settle for dismissal, literally fight for your own life. She implores us to say, I love you, because the timeline is never guaranteed, and to stop playing the paralyzing what-if game.
It is a philosophy built on survival tactics, not hollow motivational quotes. She knows the cost of complacency.
So what does this all mean? Because there's one specific piece of advice she gives that I really want to dissect.
Okay, let's hear it.
Cricket tells us to check on our family and mates, not the casual nod in the hallway. She says we need to ask, how are you really? And then stop and truly listen to the response.
Yes.
Now, I have to push back a little on a societal level here. That sounds so incredibly basic. Ask a question, listen to the answer. Yet as a culture, we are terrified of the honest answer to that question. Why do we biologically prefer the fake, I'm fine? Why are we so bad at this?
This raises an important question about human psychology. It's actually a concept known as emotional contagion.
Emotional contagion.
Yes, humans are biologically wired with mirror neurons. When we see someone in profound distress, our own nervous system actually begins to simulate their stress.
Oh, wow. So it's a physical reaction.
Exactly. Our heart rate can elevate, our cortisol spikes. We physically feel a shadow of their pain. So when we ask, how are you? And we accept the fake, I'm fine, it is a transactional exchange that protects our own biology.
We accept the lie to protect our own nervous system.
Precisely. It keeps the social gears moving without demanding any emotional labor. When you ask someone, how are you really? And you invite them to hand you an honest, messy, agonizing answer, you are fighting your own evolutionary instinct to run from pain.
Yeah, you're asking for the burden.
You are actively choosing to let their stress infect you for a moment. True listening isn't just standing quietly. It requires profound vulnerability from the listener. It means abandoning your own homeostasis to sit in the discomfort of someone else's shattered reality.
It requires you to step onto their yellow brick road, even if the sky is green and the tornado is coming. You have to be willing to get swept up in it with them.
That's a great way to put it, and that is why Cricket elevates being seen and heard to the level of a necessary gift. She knows how rare it is for someone to override their own biological instinct to flee.
Right.
Her act of sharing her true self online, through her writing, her podcasts, even her knitting, is her way of continually shouting into the void, this is how I am, really.
Yeah.
And every time someone listens, every time they don't look away, it validates the most critical human need we have, to be witnessed.
To be witnessed. That is a heavy, beautiful thought. And it brings us full circle on Cricket Fox's incredible architectural rebuild.
It really does.
We started this deep dive looking at a woman whose entire house collapsed, fighting cancer, transitioning instantly to fighting for Phil's life, and then standing in the rubble, an unwilling widow, trying to relearn the basic mechanics of living while mourning the extinction of a language only two people spoke.
She had to endure the identity vertigo of those violent shifts. But she didn't just clear the debris and pave over the lot. She did the grueling neurological work.
She really did. She went back to the Adelaide Crows games. She sat in the empty seat and forced her brain to overwrite the fear. She had the courage to look Tex in the eye and stand there, honoring the past while firmly occupying the present. She allowed the music of Wicked to serve as a container for her grief.
And in doing so, she allowed a friend like Matt to sit beside her in the dark theater and fill the cracks with gold.
Exactly. And now she's cancer-free, she's podcasting, she's creating, and she is giving us the blueprints to advocate for our own lives.
The core takeaway here for you, the listener, is that resilience is not a passive genetic trait. You aren't just born with it or without it. It is an active, daily, agonizing practice.
It's a choice.
It is a muscle. Cricket's story proves that you can survive the collapse of your load-bearing walls. But it also proves that advocacy, whether you are aggressively demanding a second medical opinion from a doctor, or you are forcing your own amygdala to calm down so you can sit in a painful empty seat and create a new memoir, is a deliberate choice.
You have to wake up every single day and choose to flex that muscle.
You really do.
You have to choose to pour the concrete for the new foundation. Which leads me thinking about how we view the people we've lost. We spend so much of our lives absolutely terrified of the moment our personal yellow brick road hits a dead end. We think that when someone we deeply love disappears from the path, they leave a massive, uncrossable sinkhole. We think the journey is over.
Right.
But listening to how Cricket has woven Phil into her present, it makes me wonder, what if the people we lose don't actually leave the road at all? What if, through the memories we insist on carrying forward, the new memoirs we bravely create in their old seats and the new companions they ultimately connect us to, what if they actually become the bricks that pave our way forward?
Thank you to everyone I have met along the way in this journey. To all of you who have taken the time to listen to the podcast and who will take the time to read the book. I'm still here and still going strong. Take care, keep your coffee cups full, and I will see you soon.